Word for word translation. Hail Anam, disrespectful behavior. Girisha of Lord Shiva. Bhratu, the brother. Dhanadasya to Kuvera. Tvaya, by you. Kritam was performed. Yat, because. Jagnivan, you have killed. Punyajanan, the Yakshas. Bhratir, of your brother. Ginan, killers. Iti, thus, thinking. Amarshita, angry. Translation and purport by Divine Grace Srila Abhay Chandravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. My dear Dhruva, you thought that the Yakshas killed your brother, and therefore you have killed great numbers of them. But by this action you have agitated the mind of Lord Shiva's brother Kuvera, who is the treasurer of the demigods. Please note that your actions have been very disrespectful to Kuvera and Lord Shiva. Purport. Lord Manu stated that Dhruva Maharaj had been offensive to Lord Shiva and his brother Kuvera because the Yakshas belonged to Kuvera's family. They were not ordinary persons. As such, they have been described as Punya Janan, pious men. Somehow or other, the mind of Kuvera had been agitated, and Dhruva Maharaj was advised to pacify him. So I'll read text 34 and 35, the verse in translation, to finish this chapter. Tam prasadaya vatsatu sanataya prashayaroktibi na yavan mahatam teja kulam nom bivivashyati. For this reason, my son, you should immediately pacify Kuvera with gentle words and prayers, and thus his wrath may not affect our family. Purport. In our common dealings, we should maintain friendship with everyone, and certainly with such exalted demigods as Kuvera. Our behavior should be such that no one should become angry and thereby commit a wrong to individuals, families, or society. Evam swayambhuva putram anushasya manurdruvam tena bhivanditathakam rishibhi swapuram yayo. Thus Swayambhuva Manu, after giving instruction, Dhruva Maharaj, his grandson, received respectful obeisances from him. Then Lord Manu and the great sages went back to their respective homes. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Swayambhuva Manu advises Dhruva Maharaj to stop fighting. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatiruvascha Kripa Sindhuvayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I'll read the verse again. Canto 4, chapter 11, verse 33. My dear Dhruva, you thought that the Yakshas killed your brother, and therefore you have killed great numbers of them. But by this action you have agitated the mind of Lord Shiva's brother Kuvera, who is the treasurer of the demigods. Please note that your actions have been disrespectful to Kuvera and Lord Shiva. So we've reached the end of this chapter, where Swayambhuva Manu has been advising Dhruva Maharaj. And if you read through the translation, after giving him the whole tattva, Lord Krishna being the cause of all causes, now he's saying, because you killed the yakshas, now you have to go and ask for forgiveness, or at least pacify Kuvera. Anger. So much can be said. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, lust, greed and anger are the three gates to hell. So in the 4th canto, at the very beginning of this canto, we see that in the 8th chapter, anger is born of, who remembers? Lobha and Nikriti, cunningness. So in the dynasty of Adharma, you see anger is appearing, and the combination of these two gives rise to anger, Krodha. In the 4th canto, we see so many instances of this, of anger, and how personalities succumb to it, how personalities deal with it, and most importantly, what are the application, what are the lessons for all of us. So what does the 4th canto start with? Where does anger, where is the first mention of anger? Which episode? Daksha, right? So what are the causes of anger? Expectation. Daksha wants to be respected, and he doesn't get it. For justifiable reasons that Lord Shiva provides for. So that causes anger in the mind of Daksha. Secondly, judging by externals, because Lord Shiva, at least the way he's appearing to be, Daksha thinks that he's least qualified than me, so he should be offering me respect. Thirdly, envy, because Daksha is so puffed up for his position, and he feels, obviously he's aware of Lord Shiva's exalted spiritual qualities. It is said that he feels envious of him, and due to which he reacts in an angry, his reaction is of anger. Once I heard this one devotee say this, envy, if it's, obviously we understand that we are in this material world because of our envy of Krishna, because we see, because we want to be the enjoyers, and obviously that position, Purusha, has been taken by Krishna, and now we have come into this world, so we are in this world because of envy. And this devotee, she was saying that if envy is not curtailed, or if it's not tamed, it can lead to public embarrassment. And she was citing this whole pastime and she gave so many beautiful instances of envy from Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 10th canto, the 6th canto. And she was describing how in the pastime of Daksha, because he couldn't contain his envy, look what happened. He had his head chopped off. Sometimes anger is also caused in the atmosphere. If you're in an atmosphere like we saw in the pastime of Daksha, in that atmosphere, Nandishvara and all others also became angry. So it's just the environment that we surround ourselves with. If we are with people, or if we are with, in such contaminating association, that can also have an effect on us. So those are the causes of anger that have been described in some of the instances in this 4th canto. Next, what are the consequences of anger? So Manu says in the text number In text number 31, control your anger, for anger is the foremost enemy on the path of spiritual realization. And then in text 32, a person who desires liberation from this material world should not fall under the control of anger, because when bewildered by anger, one becomes a source of dread for all others. So we see how anger tends to aggravate if it's not checked. It causes terror. Another instance of what consequence of anger that can lead to is being hard-heartedness. Daksha was completely, he was indifferent to her affection for Sati just because she was a wife of Lord Shiva. Just because of his anger, he became very hard-hearted. And earlier we too see that Suruchi, consumed by the anger, she tells Dhruva words such as, "You have to take birth from my womb." So she's also speaking from a platform of anger. One also becomes insensitive when one is angry. It is described in 4th canto, chapter 3, verse number 19, that the harsh words spoken by a relative can actually cause more pain than the arrows of an enemy. So, a lot of times in the Bhagavad Gita, obviously it is said speech. I was hearing Keshava Swami once say this, that a lot of times we want to aim to say the right thing at the right time with the right intention, but sometimes it's also better to check ourselves and not leave the wrong thing said at the wrong time and with the wrong intention, even though we have to say something to correct the situation. So speech should be controlled, and obviously the Bhagavad Gita speaks about it, and the consequences have been described in the Bhagavatam. One also becomes very neglectful of their relationships, of their surroundings when one is consumed by anger. And then finally, you actually fall down from your position if one is anger and that's not been curtailed by some good counsel, as we see here in the case of Swayambhuva Manu. Now, in the Bhagavatam, it is described in 4th canto, chapter 18, verse number 2, that one can control anger by seeking the essence of knowledge from all things. So this is where, like how a bumblebee knows how to seek the essence from wherever it is. So similarly, a knowledgeable person, a person who is actually wanting to progress on the path of self-realization, seeks the essence of knowledge from all things. And later on towards the latest chapter of the 4th canto, it is said in chapter number 30 of the 4th canto, last verse 46, an angry person can be pacified by good logic. This is the instance of the sons of Prachinabhari. So there is a solution, and it is described in the Shastra, and Bhagavatam speaks on these instances, and it's there for us, because earlier, if you remember, in one of the earlier verses, one can overcome the urges of anger by constantly hearing about the Lord. So constant hearing is the panacea for everything. So now this is what anger looks like on a mundane platform. And again, we see personalities, or I would give it the name of case studies that are there in the Bhagavatam for us to see and how we can best learn from it. Now, because today is the day of Sharad Purnim, and today is the first day of Damodar month, so we look at what transcendental anger looks like, at least from the 10th canto, and it gives us a glimpse of what the spiritual world is. So today, as being the first day of Kartik, Srila Prabhupada writes it in the Nectar of Devotion, of one of the 64 items of devotional service, observance of the Kartik Vrata is most beneficial, and any service or any spiritual activity one performs in this month gets 1,000 times more benefit. So we see this, especially in the month of Kartik, from today onwards, this evening we'll be offering lambs to Lord Damodar. We'll be singing the Damodar Ashtakam. And in this month, devotees really try to push themselves to take on some extra service, to either chant more, hear more, maybe increase the austerities, just for the pleasure of Sri Sri Radha Damodar, Radha Gopinath. So today, being Sharad Purnim, it is described in the 10th canto that on this night, Krishna on the banks of Vamsivat starts to play his flute, and when he plays his flute, obviously we'll see, we may think Krishna is playing his flute in a figurative way, sounding beautiful melodies, and the gopis are, being prompted to come, but the flute actually acts as a messenger. So the flute acts as a messenger to pass a message to the gopis, please come. So the gopis in the dead of the night, they come, they forsake everything, and they come to the, to the banks of Vamsivat to meet Krishna. And it's interesting because in today's society, we may just think that's not a big deal, but we look at these are the gopis, and this was 5,000 years ago. And in a very cultured society, a woman leaving house in the middle of the night is not considered to be, the best example of a society. Obviously, there are many reasons for it, but they took all these risks just to meet Krishna. Elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, it is described when the wives of the Yajnik Brahmanas, when Krishna and Balaram go to beg food from the Brahmanas, they say no, but then when they go to the wives, they obviously know the essence of all knowledge, and then they offer them prasad, and obviously their hearts are so full, and then when they later on go to them, Krishna tells them, return back to your homes. And Srila Prabhupada beautifully writes in the Krishna book that the husbands who are Brahmanas, who know the Vedic scriptures, yet they didn't want to go and see Krishna because of fear of Kamsa. So they were so cautious of their surroundings, but their wives, they surrendered completely to Krishna, so they are more advanced. The Brahmanas then accepted the wives as their teachers because they were actually showing by how they truly exemplify spontaneous and surrendered devotional service. So now here Krishna plays his flute, and all the gopis come to see him. Obviously, we also see a description or the mention of of Radharani. And when they all arrive there, it is said that Krishna disappears, and then the gopis start to lament, and then finally they see that Radharani is missing, and in the end, Krishna also leaves Radharani. And when the gopis unite, they sing these beautiful songs of separation called the Gopi Geet. And when they sing the Gopi Geet, finally, Krishna appears to them. Obviously, there's a technical reason why Krishna disappears and then he appears again. But when he appears again to the gopis, then there's a dialogue that happens between the gopis and Krishna. And then Krishna tells them, the gopis tell them, they start to describe 3 kinds of lovers. And then they tell Krishna, please explain to us these 3 kinds of lovers. Indirectly, they try to corner Krishna for what he's just done. So they start off and they say, and Krishna says, there are 3 kinds of lovers. In the first kind of loving relationship, it's sort of a merchant relationship where if I be kind to you, you be kind to me. I ignore you, you ignore me. Or as the saying goes, you pat my back, I pat your back. So it's a reciprocal relationship, and Krishna says that is selfishness. That's the first relationship, first kind of lover. Second kind of lover is, even if you love me, or if you don't love me back, I will still continue to love you. And that is most commonly seen in the relationship of a parent and a child. So a child may, throw tantrums, not behave, spring up all kinds of excuses, but the parent will still be unconditional in offering their love to the child. Um, Srila Prabhupada writes in that purport, or it's actually written in the Krishna book, that the parents are looking after only their children, and their interest lies, it doesn't expand beyond their children. But a devotee is actually more magnanimous, because a devotee's interest or compassion extends even beyond their own loved ones. They are actually extending Krishna's compassion to everyone. So a devotee is more kind to, in this instance, where even if when we go out, to share teachings in the form of book distribution, or when we share, when we are at least trying to encourage someone, sometimes it may be seen that we are attacked by others, but we still continue to do so. So, first kind of relationship is where there is sense of an equal reciprocation. Second is where even if the lover loves and there is no reciprocation, the person will still continue loving. The third one is where even if I love you, the other person just doesn't reciprocate. There's just no, just you can say hard-heartedness, like, hey. So indirectly the gopis were trying to tell Krishna, you actually belong in the third category. Now this goes even further. In the third category, there are 4 classifications. Yeah. So the person just doesn't reciprocate. The person is indifferent to you. Because one is that, possibly, because the person is self-satisfied, Atmaram. So it's just that you can't, it's completely Atmaram. What will you do? He's self-satisfied. Second is Aptakama. That means that even though this person has desires, he can easily satisfy it. So they're indifferent because they're self-satisfied, or they have desires but they can easily satisfy it. Third is called Akritagya. In that category, someone just doesn't reciprocate because they're indifferent. They're just, indifferent. And in the fourth category is Guru Druha, which is not only I don't reciprocate, but I act inimically. Again, they're telling Krishna, you be the judge, where do you fit? You actually fit in the fourth category. You called us in the middle of the night, and now you have just abandoned us. Who does this? So Krishna, they feel that they have now trapped Krishna in their subtle network of words. Sometimes it just happens where you just are left speechless. So then Krishna tells them, actually I'm not, because your desire for you to see me was so intense, by separating, by disappearing from you, I actually wanted to increase that love that you have for me. And Srila Prabhupada gives this example that Krishna was trying to tell them. It's giving an example of a person who's just lost his wealth, a poor man who gains a lot of wealth and then loses it, and then gains it back, and then because he's gained it back, now he realizes what will happen if I lose my money again or my wealth again. So they'll constantly be meditating on, how do I, just somehow not lose hold of all of this. So Krishna trying to tell them, I just disappeared for your love, for me to increase, for you to, for you to intensify my love. But then the acharyas say that is actually not everything. Obviously, as Krishna responds, it's fine, but there's one defect in it. What's the defect? What's the defect in Krishna's argument here? There's one defect here. The time. Okay. Almost there. Yes. Anything else? The gopis' love is always increasing. So because the gopis' love is always increasing, finally Krishna speaks this beautiful verse. And what's that verse? he doesn't admit defeat, but he says this. Na paryaham nirvadya samyujam svasadhu krityam vibhuda vibhudayushyapi va yamabajan durjaram deha shrinkala samvrisya tadva pratiyatu sadhuna. Actually, I'm unable to repay my debt for your service to me, even with the prolonged life of Brahma, because you have given up everything for me. You have given up family ties, which are so difficult to break. You have given up the dictates of the world, of the Vedas, and of your relatives. You have forsaken everything for my sake, which I could not do for you. You have given up all other relationships for me, but I could not do that for you. Then Krishna says, I still have my father, mother, and friends. You came running out of your house in the middle of the night, but I sneak out and return in the morning so that no one catches me. But you, with complete abandon, have come to meet me without any consideration of the consequences. And I have so many devotees with whom I reciprocate devotees in Madhurya Rasa, in Vatsalya Rasa, in Sakhya Rasa, in Dasya Rasa, and in Shanta Rasa. I also reciprocate with the sadhakas in the material world who are struggling and trying to become devotees. I reciprocate with everyone who approaches me, but you love only me. So I cannot equal your love. I admit it. I can never repay my debt to you. He concluded, I am defeated by your love. So the gopis are now so touched by Krishna's word that they want to admit defeat, but they can't. So this word na pariyaham remains their solace. And later Krishna leaves and goes to Mathura, to Kamsa, and then they only gain solace in these words of na pariyaham. And actually later on, in this pastime, it is said that Krishna performs his Rasa Leela, and it is said that he expands himself, wherein each gopi thinks that Krishna is only with her. And in doing so, it is said that it was complete, and our acharyas commentate that there's complete harmony not only between Krishna and the gopis, but even within the gopis themselves. And this is, can be expanded upon to say that this is a picture of the spiritual world where everyone is only focused on the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. All pastimes revolve around them, and everyone is assisting them in their pastimes. This past week, in one of the talks, Ganesham Prabhu was mentioning that what's the mood of devotees in Vrindavan? It's that everyone wants to be the servant of the servant of the servant. How does this manifest? He's saying when we offer something to Shri Radha Gopinath, our offering goes through the Guru Parampara. So each, our acharyas are offering, let's say if we're cooking in the kitchen, they add, it's their own flavor, their own service, and it actually, when it goes up to Radha Gopinath, it's no longer our offering. It has been enhanced by the Guru Parampara. And further down, so the person who is actually the furthest away from Radha Gopinath, when they see it, the bliss that they are feeling, or the ecstasy that they're feeling, is far more than the person who's the closest to Radha Gopinath. So that is the mood of not only the gopis but everyone in Vrindavan, where everyone is completely attuned to just serving, ahaituki apratihata, without any other motivation, just for the pleasure of Krishna. So we finished this canto today. Not this canto, this chapter, where Swayambhuva Manu advises Dhruva Maharaj, and then Dhruva Maharaj will now, as you see, will actually go and pacify Kuvera, and Kuvera, as a result of being pleased by Dhruva Maharaj's words, will offer him benedictions. So maybe for a split moment we may think, how did Dhruva Maharaj succumb to this force of anger? Now that may be so, yes, that is true, we see that, but then by the association or by the words of Swayambhuva Manu, he regains composure and he's able to perform his duty. So even in our life, when we have that association as a sadhu sangha, we'll always feel protected. There's one story that was shared to me by a devotee, a disciple of Loknath Maharaj. Maybe I've said it before, but I'd like to say it again. It's a good reminder for all of us. And Maharaj was saying this, that in India every year, especially in the month of January, there's Kumbh Mela, and in this Kumbh Mela, I mean, if you've seen it, this is the largest spiritual gathering on this planet. It is described that obviously there's there's a time at which you should all take a dip in the Ganga. So he was saying that sometimes, when the time draws closer to, for us to take a dip in the Ganga, we may see us being pushed by people, by the force of people that you're having to enter the Ganga. So let's say at that moment, even if you have a second thought, let me just back out, maybe I just don't want to do it. You won't be able to, because the force of the people will be so strong that you'll be pushed into the Ganga to actually take a dip and be purified. So similarly, we should surround ourselves in such sadhu sangha that even if there are moments where we are falling to the urges of our senses, or if there's some sort of weakness on our part, it just happens because that's how this world is. It's meant to bring us down. If we are somehow or the other packed up, as Prabhupada will always say, packed up in the association of devotees, then naturally we'll always be protected, no matter however strong our mind is. So a lot of times when we say, how do I control our mind, it's by that association. And so we see here in the instance of Dhruva Maharaj, Swayambhuva Manu, because of his relationship with Swayambhuva Manu, and obviously the sages, and he's fortunate enough, so we should also surround ourselves with that good fortune of being with devotees who can, once I remember a devotee was sharing this with me, and he said that they were living in a city where there was some devotees living around the college campus, the university campus, and because it was exam time, they couldn't go and attend morning programs, so they came up with an idea. Let's just call each other at 4:30 and we'll chant japa for an hour. So we just call each other. This was way before WhatsApp was being used widely. So these devotees just had this plan, and this one devotee told me that one day he was just so tired by staying up studying for exams that he just didn't have the courage to wake up at 4:30. So at 4:30 he's getting a call from 1, 2, 3, 5. The 8th person just when he answered the phone, like, "What are you doing? You're in Maya. Wake up." The devotee was like, "Oh, okay. Let me. This is for my own good." So sometimes we just need that wake-up call. Now, obviously, this may be overly dramatic, but we find what kind of association helps us, and we stick to that, and we should remain grateful to Radha Gopinath, our Guru Parampara, Srila Prabhupada, and the devotees who are constantly helping, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Abhyasa Yuktena, constantly. We should have to make a constant endeavor to be situated on this path, or else it'll just take us down. So it's 8:40. I'll end here. If maybe someone has a question or comment. Yes, Hare Krishna. Chapter 11 of this canto, right? Okay, I have 3 minutes. So this chapter begins when Dhruva, this boy, I mean, he's no longer a boy, he's quite old enough. He's actually fighting against those. So what happens that he has a brother, a step brother, Earlier, if we go back, it is said that because he couldn't sit on the lap of his father, his stepbrother was sitting there, and he had a desire to sit on there. His stepmother told him, you go and perform austerities and pray to Vishnu so that you can take birth from my womb. And he does that, and then he sees Lord Vishnu, and then he's able to overcome any feeling of vengeance in his heart, and he's now sitting on the throne. And it just so happens that his stepbrother goes to the forest for hunting excursion, and he's killed by one yaksha, who's actually one of the personalities. And Dhruva is so affected by it that he takes it upon himself to not only kill that one, but kill thousands of other of these, of that same tribe or that same family or lineage. And because he's involved in unnecessary killing, his seniors come and tell him, "What are you doing? You shouldn't be unnecessarily killing. Yes, killing is good, but unnecessary killing is prohibited, because most importantly, you're actually a very exalted soul. You're endowed with good qualities. You have the blessings of Vishnu, and actually you will be attaining a very high destination. You'll be actually going back to Godhead. So don't act like that." So in the series of Swambhuva Manu advising him, Swambhuva Manu is explaining to him the reasons for which he should give up his anger. And now he's understood the situation, and he's taken all that advice on board, and now he'll actually be going to retract from fighting, which was actually he was just on a killing spree, which and early in this chapter, if you look at, because a lot of times when we overcome by anger, sometimes it just may be that we don't know how to behave, how to act. And in verse 13, the Lord says, Swambhu Manu tells him what should be the disposition of a devotee. The Lord is very satisfied with the devotee when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. So that should be the proper behavior of someone who's on this path of Krishna consciousness. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Radha Damodar ki, Nita Go Premanande, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.